crazy. And for me, because I went to work in it, this was my sanctuary.
Yeah.
That's why I kept coming. You know, I could have, me and Hope had a long talk, but I told her, I said, I will find stuff to talk about, because there's going to be stuff to talk about, because we were still in a pandemic and everything that was going on. So I made it through. Like I said, I got through it, and nonetheless, we are back. So welcome to another installment of SportsRap podcast here on Heat100Radio.com. Like I said, my partner is back with me.
Feels good, brother. Feels good, man.
To have him back.
Feels good.
And I know you were tuned in, so I gave up what I usually do, the scores and stuff. I talked a little basketball, I talked to those Sixers. And I left off with the Sixers talk with talking about the coaching candidates, the names that popped up. One of the things I mentioned was I feel like everybody that's available needs to be interviewed.
Right.
Because of where you were, how this last season played out. And I'm including everything. The hiccup with the stoppage of play, then the restart, and then moving into the playoffs. And it was just a bad playoff series for us this year, considering the expectations that were had for the year. But just seeing it, the way it played out. And then I also mentioned watching the Miami Heat right now is tough for me.
Yes, it's real tough.
Because of the person that we let get away and what he's done with that particular team. And I look at that roster, and there's no discredit to that roster, but I look at that roster and then I look at the Sixers roster. I would edge out the Sixers as being a little bit more talented on
Most
paper.
definitely.
And unfortunately, it did not work out that way for us. We are where we are, but again, like I said, I just need them to interview everybody that's available. There needs to be some roster changes. And I also feel like Elton Brand needs to be the one to put his foot down now.
Yeah,
and like I said, I know, and I've been hearing that it's been by committee. They're going to run things past everybody. But I think Elton, being the former player, being the most basketball mindful in that group, he needs to, at some point towards the end of all that, put his foot down and say, this is the direction we're going. This is what we're going to do. If you like it, you're with me, or you're not with me. But this is what's going to happen. This is how we need to do it.
The Sixers in itself, where we sit with the Sixers right now, is, like I know, it's all on the shoulders of leadership. And, the lack of leadership is the reason why Jimmy Butler is not here.
Yep.
Is the reason why we gave big contracts to guys, because we felt like the market made us do it, because if we lost them, along with Jimmy Butler, we definitely wouldn't have anything.
Right.
So, I mean, for this organization, it's pivotal, because this is going to determine, well, you got Ben Simmons for like another 3 years, 3-4 years.
Right.
You got Joel for like another 3 years on that contract.
And now Tobias for about 3 or 4 months.
And you got him for about another 3-4 years. So whoever you bring in, that coach knows for the next at least 2 to possible 2.5 years.
This is my foundation.
All right, here's the foundation. What can I add to what you have now?
Right.
What philosophy are you bringing into what's here now? Are you going to tear down the philosophy, the previous philosophy, to import yours in? And how long will that take? Right. Because this was a team that was trusting the process to go uphill, and once we got a little high up, it stopped. The progression stopped.
Yep, we
flattened out. You know what I mean? It's like the coronavirus. We went up, and then it
just flattened out,
and then it remained. So the coaching may have got it here, but then bringing somebody else, the person that you bring in gotta go up. And if it doesn't go up and it just plateaus out, whatever, we wasting time. Yep. We gotta get what we can get with what we got now.
Absolutely.
And you're gonna have to tear the house down and be processing all over again. You know,
and that's not really the direction that you really want to go in right now. Like I said, being 2 years, 2-3 bounces away from the Eastern Conference Finals is pretty hard. That'll be a pretty hard pill to swallow to want to start over.
Yeah.
So we will definitely delve into more of that once we get into the off season and get that going. So folks, you know, of course, the shirt today is orange. It's bright color today, courtesy of World Envision. You can get them on at World Envision, WRLDNVSN on Instagram. Same thing on Facebook, and World Envision spelled the same way .com is their website. Two young brothers from New Orleans who have started their own t-shirt company, and go check them out, support them. Tell them SportsRap sent you, black owned. So support. So now that my partner's here, we can get into these scores. We can do this football thing. Got a few games that we can talk about and do what we do. We're going to have our announcement to make once we get through these schedules and talk about these football games. And I wanted to hold this until you got here, because I just said what I mentioned to the people was we always have good dialogue, even regarding the fact that you are a 49ers fan and I'm an Eagles fan.
Most definitely.
We still have some really good dialogue with our respective teams' games and other games around the league. So let's just get through some of these scores real quick. You know, the 2020 season started off on Thursday. We had the defending champs Kansas City defeat Houston 34-20. We moved into our Sunday games. You got the Seahawks defeat the Falcons 38-25. The Jets fall to the Bills 27-17. Chicago edges out Detroit in a thriller 27-23. Green Bay beats up on Minnesota 43-34. Miami falls to New England 21-11. The Philadelphia Eagles fall to the Washington football team 27-17. That game will definitely be talked about a little bit. Las Vegas defeats Carolina 34-30. Indianapolis falls to Jacksonville 27-20. Baltimore beats up on Cleveland 38-6. The Chargers edge out the Bengals 16-13. Tampa Bay, in the debut of Tom Brady for his new team, they fall to New Orleans 34-23. Talk a little bit about that game as well. Arizona edges out San Francisco 20-24. Dallas gets edged out by the Rams in the opening of their new stadium 20-17. So that last score really is like a saving grace for Eagles fans, or most Eagles fans, because it's a Dallas loss.
Yeah, it is.
So anytime you have that
Dallas
that
loss
kind of
is
thing,
an Eagles
loss, or if you have a Dallas loss, period, you know, it's always a good thing for the Eagles. And it kind of slowed up the chatter for this season so far, because both teams lost. So it's not as much going on.
Whose loss is
right
worse?
Now. Right.
That's the question.
Now, in reality, wow, it's a real good question.
That's the question. Question is, whose loss is worse? Is the Eagles' loss?
You could very easily initially say that the Eagles' loss is worse. But I don't like to do it, and I don't want people to think or get the impression that I'm blaming it on injuries or things of that nature, because I never do. You know that, Baldy, from being here with me, from talking to me just in general. I never blame it on that. And I have some things that I can say, and I will say about that Eagles game. But now that I've broken that down that way, with considering those injuries to some key players that really made a difference in that Eagles game, you could also argue that the Dallas game was a little bit worse. Because although it wasn't a division game, which the Eagles game was a division game, but it was still a conference game. And for the expectations that are abound with the Cowboys as being a contender and not a pretender, it looks like that's a game that you should have won. New coach, new philosophy, but a lot of things that were said this morning were the fact that they got the new blood as far as the coach, they got some new talent, but they're still the same Cowboys. So now it's like Dak's record, and I'm just throwing some numbers out there just for sake of conversation. His numbers now in one possession games is now 1-7, and to me,
It's a big number.
I think that's might be part of the reason why he was franchise tagged and hasn't been given the big money yet. And we're going to talk Eagles, so don't fret, fans. There is some things where you can kind of look at. There might be some similarities in these comparisons, but the Cowboys seem to do the same thing every year in a lot of games within their seasons. They get to the point where they can't get over the hump. They can't close the deal. Listening to the pre-games yesterday, there was a stat that was put out that the Eagles have won more playoff games in the last 3 years than the Cowboys have won since '96.
Listen, it's kind of weird you said that,
And
because I said something to somebody the other day, and I said, at the softball game,
okay,
I was talking to Corey. And I said,
Corey
well,
Williams,
I was talking to
Cowboy
Corey.
fan
I said, well, you're a Dallas Cowboy fan. I said, well, my son is 15, almost 16. That is the last time that y'all got to the playoffs and lost in the first round. Tony Romo was your quarterback, and his record isn't too much different from Dak Prescott.
right?
You know what I mean? Now that's a whole. You're almost going 2 decades. 2 decades. Almost 2 decades without having a win,
right?
A playoff win, which is kind of crazy, because to have expectations of this team and given the history of what they've done, how do they keep getting this expectation?
I don't know. I mean, you can go back as far as last season and look how they pretty much had the division wrapped up.
Yeah.
And then they got to that point where the Eagles somehow, some way showed up and had to win out to win the division, and they did it. It's like the second time they did it in like the last 3 or 4 years that they did that.
Yeah.
Dallas pretty much had the division in hand. The Eagles came down to the late end of the season, and they won. But again, like you just said, they get the same expectations every year, and they don't hold up.
It's false expectations.
And you move to the other side, and you look at the green and white, or the green and silver, however you call it. They've done some things. It's getting a little old for me right now that they have to get their backs pushed to the wall
in order to play.
In order to really play.
Right.
A lot of things that I saw yesterday from my quarterback are things that in year 4 or 5 now?
Yeah.
Things that should have been cleaned up. The unnecessary sacks in key moments of games. Carson, come on, dude. You got to get with the program. You got to throw the ball away. You
got to.
You have to throw the ball away. The one where you took us out of field goal position, out of field goal range, it was a stretch. It was almost there, but like they said, almost only counts in horseshoes.
Yeah. He
So
had
it
an
didn't really
opportunity.
matter.
He had an opportunity.
You need to be a little bit more better with some of your throws. Some of those interceptions, I can't put them all on you, but I can put some of it on you.
Now, do you think he was trying to force the issue, being as though the momentum has shifted?
I think some of them he was trying to, which he has.
Because it ain't look natural at the
He has a tendency to do.
it didn't.
And that's why I say it's getting a little old for me, because a lot of times you pull those games out. But yesterday, I think he pushed the issue just a little bit too much, because there were passes that he normally makes. The couple that he overthrew to Ertz. He had the one drop from Hightower, which should have been a catch.
Right.
You know, and for him, you could arguably say that he was mirroring the way last season ended.
Yeah.
With my receiving core not being up to par and the drops. But still, there are moments where you have to take it upon yourself and remember what you're doing and be mindful of what you're doing. And some of those sacks that you took late in that game which helped the momentum as well. You have to throw the ball away.
I know one thing that I thought about it after the game. The one thing that I think is looming over his head is that the chip was won without him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that he in Philly.
Right.
Where City got their first and ever
Mm-hmm.
without you, and the guy that got us there ain't here no more. It's something looming over this dude's head where his stats don't mean nothing to Philadelphia fans. Your stats don't mean nothing.
Right.
Can you get us the chip? Because now the city is chip hungry.
Yep.
So it's like, all right, my man, we know that technically before you got hurt, you was on your way to an MVP year. Mm-hmm. Arguably the MVP if he don't get hurt.
Yeah. We need to see some more of that.
He gets hurt again.
Mm-hmm.
Nick takes over. Nick wins the chip.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You come back to the rim. You get bumped out the playoffs. Now you back. Mm-hmm. You got that's the first full year of being healthy.
Yep.
So now,
and arguably a game that you should have won.
And you should have won. And now here we go, because the defense was doing what the defense do. Mm-hmm. So now here it is. Technically, your sophomore year of healthiness. Mm-hmm. Your sophomore year. And like you said, it ended. That game picked up the way last season ended. And so for him, I think it's more mental. Because when you watch certain things he does, mm-hmm. and you see the frustration, and then you start seeing him force the issue, the pass ain't as tight, the pass is at the ground. Now, it was drops. It was some drops that could have changed the complex of the game.
True.
I get that. But you went from the middle of the second quarter, and you never got another point put on that board. Now, whether or not you score is one thing, but to be put in position to get points, that's the issue. Yeah. And for him, that mental block, he's going to have to, in order for this team to get to where they think they're going to be, he's going to have, just gave Washington some heart. Yeah. Washington's got some heart.
And again, the team is not good.
Nah, at all.
They're not. I mean, the best thing going for them is their defensive line, which showed yesterday. Mm-hmm. But they could have been beat. They should have been beaten.
They should have been beat.
They should have been beaten. You did what you wanted. You came out early in the game, and it looked like you were going to be able to dominate and do whatever you wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And then it looked like something set in, like you just said, like the black cloud just popped up out of nowhere.
Yeah,
and it was like a mirror.
Something going on with him, man.
And to give up 7-8 sacks to that team, I kind of give that to everybody. Now, people will say offensive line wasn't what it should have been. It's all fine and well. But then we go back into the game within the game. Mm-hmm. The coaching staff, now you've got to start adjusting to pull that defensive line off. You keep dropping back passing, dropping back throwing, they're going to pin their ears back and they're going to keep coming, knowing that your offensive line is subpar to what it should be. Right. This is where you have to help your team out as a coach,
additional blocker.
You leave an additional blocker in there.
Your running back could be a blocker, or you bring in another tight end.
Right, or you start running the ball. Yeah. Even though it may not be as successful as you want it to, you've got to find ways to slow that defensive line down, which changed the momentum and actually took the momentum and just let it trickle into the rest of the defense because their secondary is not that good. No.
Not that good. That your offense was good enough, to light them
even
up
with
in
injuries,
a way.
Absolutely,
yeah.
And it should have played out that way, but like we say, it's a long season. Hopefully, knowing Doug's history, he'll get these things cleaned up. But at some point, somewhere, very quickly, someone has to get Carson in that film room and reassure to him or reiterate to him, you got to throw the ball away. Yeah. You can't take those types of sacks that knock you out of position to score points. Yeah. Whether it's field goals or whether it's extending the drive to get a touchdown, those plays are something that in your tenure right now you should have that in your repertoire.
Yeah, it should be in there.
You should be able to know when you got to throw the ball away.
Mm-hmm.
Got to throw it away.
I think, and not to dig into the bag that far back, but I still think there's some sort of remnants left over from how his reaction and his treatment was to the team during that championship run, where he considered himself not the good teammate, where he said, I could have did things differently. I was a little, and I think there are guys that are still there,
right,
who remember that.
Yeah.
Mainly the offensive line, because a lot of them are still intact from that championship run.
Yeah.
And I think some of them may still remember. Not saying that you need they kind of bring it to the field.
But that's one of the things is like from Carson's outlook, he's got to accept it for what it is, and he's got to play football. Yeah. And when I say play football, I mean just play football. You've got to get away from the pressure somehow, some way, because that pressure is killing you right now. It's killing your stats were still good. Yeah. But
killing the team.
The overall, when you should have gotten a win, you got a loss. So it bodes very differently when you have that pressure in the way the rest of the team plays.
Yeah. And we still believe that's that one thing that you and I both agree is, if you're going to give the person the wins, you got to give them the losses.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that's just, that loss goes on him. He's the leader.
Yeah. He's the leader. So let's talk a little bit about the New Orleans Tampa Bay game. Now, we all know how that was looked at on paper. You figure initially we knew going in it was Tom and Gronk. Then just right before the season actually started, they pick up a Leonard Fournette. I don't remember hearing his name a lot yesterday.
Nah.
And
I think he carried the ball about 5 or 6 times.
You can't sell me on the fact that he's only been here a week, he doesn't know the playbook. Can't sell me on that, because the type of running back, the type of player that Leonard Fournette is, you can give him the ball.
Yeah,
and
he'll figure it out. Yeah.
He can do things, he can ad lib, as we like to say, along the way. But it's different here, Tom. It's
an adjustment.
This is not the same AFC that you've dominated for the past several years. These are not the same teammates. This is not the same culture.
The South.
And
it's the South.
And
it ain't gonna get no easier.
It's the NFC South.
It's not gonna get easy.
Period. So your dominance is not what it once was.
Yeah.
So again, like you just said, it's an adjustment for him. It's a huge adjustment, because in reality, I didn't even hear Gronk's name called a lot.
No, I don't even remember him.
I think he caught about 3 or 4 passes.
Yeah, about 3 passes. It wasn't much. He wasn't targeted that much at all.
And the sacks on Brady, where he's used to not really being touched a lot or at all. The pick 6.
Which he had ending his year.
Yes.
He had a pick 6 in it.
You're playing against a division that was a pretty tough division anyway. I mean, the Saints have really much owned that division for the last couple of years. But the bottom line is, you moving into that division, everybody in that division that you play now is going to give you their A+ game because of who you are coming into that division. And Drew Brees, Sean Payton, and the Saints just showed me yesterday that they are still the cream of the crop in that division right now. And for them adding the pieces that they added, which was not a lot.
No, it wasn't.
It's like Emmanuel Sanders and maybe 1 or 2 other players. But it shows that you're not coming over here and just automatically, we're not going to just automatically fold because you're Tom Brady. You're going to earn it. If you want this division, you're going to earn it.
He's looking at that schedule saying, okay, I got to play them again.
Yep.
Then I got to play Atlanta twice. Then I got to play Carolina twice. That's just your division. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's just your division.
And then, like they say, by order of finish, you're going to have to play some other NFC teams.
Listen.
And some of those teams may be the likes of Green Bay, who's playing with the quarterback that has a chip on his shoulder because of how their draft played it out. Seattle, who's always in the mix. The reigning NFC champions.
Niners.
The Niners.
Yeah, you still got Arizona in the mix.
Even though the Eagles played as poorly as they played yesterday, and the Cowboys, and I hate to say it that way, but it's reality. They're still in the conference.
Yeah.
So at some point, you may end up playing one or two or three of these teams. So like you just said, it's not going to get any easier.
It doesn't get any easier, and the season gets longer.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You didn't have a lengthy training camp, so you're still building relationships with these players, and it's not like the players in New England, where it just seemed like you had to be a special breed or a special person to play under Belichick and play with Tom Brady in New England. So it's not the same culture anymore. Now, there are guys that I looked at yesterday on that Tampa Bay team where the one point where Tom was yelling about somebody running the incorrect route or stopping on a route or something. In New England, he didn't get much feedback from other players. You're in a whole different culture now. You may have some players on that roster that would tell you to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Or maybe if you threw the ball and threw me open, I would have caught it. You know, so I'm not saying that that's definitely going to happen, but there is the potential, and that's another thing that you can check off on your list as a change that could be a shock.
Well,
and the fact that he's 40 something, and now these guys are coming.
There's that thing where Tom Brady is like the uncle in your family who doesn't respect you as a grown man even though you're his nephew. And so you're a grown man as well with kids of your own.
Right.
And he's gonna talk reckless to you. Nah, wrong one, champ.
Right.
You know what I mean? You did that over there. Over there.
That was about 4 or 5 years ago. About
you know
4 or 5 years ago.
And so that's what's gonna happen over there with guys like Mike Evans and them.
Right. Like Biggie said, things done changed.
Things done changed, man. Things done changed. It is not the same outfit.
Right.
The outfit that Tom Brady had on in New England was scripted for him. Those wide receivers was not going to talk back. Right. The offensive line was going to listen to him. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe that a lot of people on that team, because of his stature, they're going to, this dude know his stuff, like he been around. But the problem is, it's always an issue when you have a new generation of people coming up, rookies, 2-year guys, whatever. And then you got the old head who's trying to enforce that same style he had elsewhere on them. And sometimes that clashes. And you're really not going to know until mid-season.
Right.
Because by mid-season, week 8, week 9, we're going to see what that record is. And that record is going to dictate the mentality, the attitudes. If you're going to quit, guys won't quit. That's when he's going to start getting hit. Yeah. So how long is it? If that's the case, and that's when that happens, how long will his 40-year-old body stand up?
Right. And
lucky for him, he in Florida.
Yeah. And see, the other thing is people forget or overlook the fact that they did sign Tom Brady, but there was not much else as far as improvements. Yeah. So it wasn't like, okay, we got Tom Brady now, we need to get some more beef on this offensive line. That didn't happen. Then they brought in Gronk, thinking, all right, we'll make him comfortable there. Okay, now teams know, and the NFC is a different animal. Yeah. Teams, I think this is part of what happened yesterday. They took Gronk out of the game. Yeah. Yeah. So now you got to make this work, Tom Terrific, with these new receivers and minimal training camp. How are these guys going to catch on? Right. How are these guys going to step up?
Now, isn't it ironic that even when you compare basketball and football, when you compare them, and you compare conferences, ain't it crazy how the East Coast teams, just like the NFC, the Eastern Conference is the gritty, grimy, it's the, and then when you go out to the West Coast,
it's the free flowing.
It's the same thing in the NFL. It's the same way. You know what I mean? It's kind of crazy that it's like that. I don't know why it's like that, but the similarities is uncanny, man. That when you come from that area and then you come over to, you realize, they dogs. This is, because the only time you really seeing them is a chip run.
Right.
Or an out of conference game here and there. But now you got to see these dudes pretty much every week.
Yeah.
Outside of how many outside conference? Maybe 2.
Yep.
Come on,
you
gonna see
3.
Maybe 3. You gonna see somebody on the on the West 3 times.
Yeah. So that means you got
13,
14, 15 games where it could be rough for you.
Yeah, man. The
whole night.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a big change. Like you said, you know, people tried to hype that up as the older elder statesman at quarterback. Yeah, but the difference is continuity on that black and gold side.
Yeah.
It's not that continuity yet.
Yeah.
On that, you know.
See, if he was 35 at the time, if he was 35, I would say, give him some time.
Yeah.
But he's 40.
Yeah, he's 40.
He on the slope. He coming down. So. It's gonna be tough to see.
It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be interesting too.
Very.
It's gonna be very interesting. You know, it's just funny because I was talking to Hope yesterday. We were watching the game. She's like, "You're not gonna like?" I said, "Nah." I said, "I'm not really into this game, whatever." I said, "She's like, you don't want to see Tom Brady lose?" I said, "Of course I want to see him lose." I said, "But I'm taking this first game with a grain of salt." And, you know, one of the things I mentioned to her. And it's the thing that I mentioned all the time about his wins and his success, where people consider him the GOAT. And I say, like we both said, it's asterisk next to a lot of his success.
Definitely got some asterisks next to it.
You know, and I said, you don't have that same cohesiveness where, and I just flat out said this, you don't have that cheating over here now.
Yeah.
You know, and like you said, it's a little bit rougher in the NFC. It's a little bit rougher because you got these guys that are looking now is, especially if it's a team that you played in a championship faction that's from the NFC, and they get their chance to play you again. Now you're with the NFC, and they know the Tampa Bay Bucks. They know the things that they can do, how they can scheme against you, and come and try and clean your clock just because. That's coming.
Oh yeah,
it is coming.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think yesterday the Saints went out to prove a point. To say that this is our house, this is our division. Welcome to the NFC, because you're not gonna have that cakewalk like you had. You know, you saw these guys all the time, so you knew their weak spots. You haven't seen these guys as much, so you got to get back to, like you said, maybe the 30, 35-year-old Tom Brady. Now you might be able to do it mentally, but physically, is where the problem comes in.
He still got his touch. I seen him throw some touch passes.
And the physicality thing where you can't move, now you've got defensive ends that are 300 plus pounds that run 4 3s, 4 4s, 4 5s. That's quick. And them jumping off the line and getting there. And then you're playing with a coach that's playing a different scheme where it's a different scheme for you, it's a different outlook, different style for you, so you have to get into it and make yourself comfortable in it. It's not like every year you went with Belichick and you knew Belichick was going to make it comfortable for you.
Right.
You didn't have to work as hard to be comfortable.
And they had to create. They got to create an identity offensively.
Now you have to work a little bit harder to get comfortable, to create that identity. And like you said, you've had guys there that have had success with lesser quarterbacks before you got there. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult to pull them in, to change their attitudes, like you mentioned, the Mike Evanses, guys like that have had success. Okay, you Tom Brady, all right. So it should be easier for both of us now.
That's what I was about to say. And those guys was there with Jameis Winston, who threw for almost 5,000 yards.
Right.
So it's not that the offense can't move because they done it.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to implicate what you know and you do to an offense that has already? Are you going to minimize? You going to minimize the mistakes at QB?
Right.
Because you just threw a pick six.
Yeah.
You threw another, and you threw 2 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you on the pace of doing just what Jameis Winston was just doing.
Yep.
And what we always talked about in terms of preseasons. Should they get rid of preseason? Should they keep it? Or should they do one game to allow the people they want to keep use that one game?
Yeah, I think they should do like 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, and now we're seeing you got to have something.
And, you know,
now
that you brought that up, if and when they get to a point when we get through this pandemic, and they get to a full season where they can have a full training camp, you can split those games at training camp. It doesn't have to be training camp, then the 2 preseason games, then whatever. You can start training camp, which you'll have a full training camp. You can start that, do about 4 weeks, then you have your 1 preseason game.
Right.
Then at the very end of training camp, you have 1 more preseason game before you start the season.
Yeah.
Which I think
it doesn't have to be back to back.
Right. Which I think could work because you can iron out some things. You can start with a plan up until your first game. You can get that first game. Then you can, like you said, you can analyze if I can use this guy. I may not use him as a wide receiver. I may just use him on special teams.
Yeah. And
you can do that in practice and then put it in a game format and see how it goes out. And then have that week to cut down your roster and move into the regular season.
Yeah.
So I think that could work. Like I said, the whole time that we talked about sports being stopped and sports slowly coming back, and people will say that I talked about the NBA, I gave them too much credit, maybe, but I don't think I did, because like I said, they covered just about everything that they felt would come up. And when they started the restart, they gave the teams an 8-game season. They had a little mini camp, and then they gave them an 8-game season, and then they moved into the playoffs, and then they made the adjustments where they were playing every other day, because we don't need the travel time, you don't need the rest.
Because
every other day, everybody's here. You're going to play every other day. But what it did was it got those guys back together to get some of that level of continuity back before the playoffs started. And they gave him 8 games, which I think was good. I mean, I would have been happy with 4, but they gave him 8, which was cool. And then they incorporated, as far as in the Western Conference, the 11 teams. They didn't just cut it off at like 9 or 10. They went 11 teams. So they gave those teams that were fighting a chance with those 8 games. They gave everybody a chance, and you saw what happened. Portland took that chance. Ultimately, Dan got hurt. They couldn't get over. And now you see what Denver is doing with that chance. So I think it could work. You know, like I said, you do the 2 preseason games. You start your training camp. You go a couple weeks, and you have a preseason game, and then you finish training camp, and you have another preseason game, and then you move into the season.
Yeah,
I think that would be better because, like you said, then you have that first preseason game, and then now you can start working on your schemes with your regulars, and you can trickle in that training camp. You can start to trickle in the people that you want to add into the system or to the game plan or whatever.
That's what the pandemic did. The pandemic actually shed light on some areas that needed to be seen a little differently, because there's always been discussion about whether or not the preseason should be shorter, longer, whatever. You know, should the actual season be lengthened a little longer or whatever? You have a kind of idea of what it could kind of look like. You know what I mean? If you partially did it, as well as basketball. You know, certain systems in the way basketball is set up, and remember the basketball season normally starts October 31st.
Right, and then they're talking about it's like they're pushing that back even. You know, the draft was supposed to be October the 16th, free agency the 18th. That's being pushed back. They're talking about the season may not start until around Christmas, and now that might not even happen.
But see, here's the crazy part: you want to push it, you possibly could push it back to Christmas, but we'll be going right back into the same area. And so you can't keep pushing it back.
Right.
And if you're doing that, now you're changing when these games start. Now that changes, it changes money. So you start messing with
And
people's
then,
money,
like you said, with the
start getting crazy.
NBA, with the NBA and the way that's set up, when you get into the playoffs, then you have to decide now: do we do a season and then move into a bubble for the playoffs?
Right.
Because you have to condense it now, so to speak, with your time frame, and then you got these arenas where you're expecting or you want to bring fans back into it, but you get condensed.
Yeah.
And then it's like we can't do the 2-3 days in between because they're traveling and all that. We can't do that. So we gotta do something.
I mean, they was off about 4 months.
Yeah.
So you off about 4 months of no basketball in terms of NBA basketball, but a lot of guys are still working out.
Right.
But now you're in this playoff format. It ain't that many of y'all left anyway.
Right.
So everybody else, if you on chill mode, that's an issue on your own. You should still be working out because that season should. I say they should shoot for the Thanksgiving, the end of November.
I think that would be good.
You know what I mean?
It's not that far off.
It ain't that far off. It's not that far off. And you still got guys. You got guys that didn't make the playoffs. They ain't been playing anyway.
Right. You got guys that weren't invited to the bubble
at all.
Haven't been playing.
So
anyway.
you got hundreds of guys that were not playing once that shut down. They wasn't going to make the playoffs, so they haven't been playing anyway. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's kind of weird how it's going to play out. I hope that they shoot for Thanksgiving.
Right.
You know what I mean? The end of November. Then that's just 30 days off from when you would have started in October.
Right.
And you still kind of on pace.
Kind of on pace.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Play catch up. You know what I mean?
Play catch up. So closing out week 1 tonight, you got Pittsburgh at the Giants, Tennessee.
It's a lot of Giants fans on here too right now.
Denver. A lot of Giants fans.
Yeah, I see.
A lot of Giants fans. So the Giants right now have the upper hand, so to speak, in the NFC East. The only team that hasn't played yet.
They number one.
So they temporarily have an upper hand,
number one seed
in that division. So those games will be on ESPN tonight. I will post those scores for you tomorrow. So right now, before we close out, we're going to run through this week 2 schedule.
My fault, dear. I mean to cut you off. I do have folks that did send me in their sheet. I was tallying them up. It's about 3 or 4 people sent some stuff in to me.
Okay.
And I'll have that. I'll shoot that over to you. I'll tally that up after tonight's games.
Cool.
I'll tally that up. I just want to tell you right now, I'm hot.
All right.
Only got about 2 losses.
Yeah, I went through mines and I was.
I only got about 2 losses.
I got 4.
I got about 2 or 3 losses so far.
Yeah, I got 4 losses.
Which is not including the 2 games tonight.
Yeah, so, I got 4, not including 2 games tonight. Yeah. So we'll see. Thursday, Cincinnati at Cleveland. Battle of Ohio.
I might have to go with Cincinnati, man. Joe Burrow showed me something, man.
I'm going with Cincy. There's something, looking at highlights from yesterday's Cleveland game, something going on there.
Yeah.
I can't put my finger on it just yet, but you can see the mannerisms with those guys on the field, with some of the broken plays, some of the miscues. That is something else got to be going on there. So I'm going to swing and go with Cincy too for that game. And we move into Sunday. The Giants at the Bears. I'm stretching here. I'm going to go with the Giants over the Bears because of the Saquon Barkley factor. And I'm not sure about Chicago's defense outside of Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
I'm still not sold on Trubisky either. So I'm going to swing with the Giants.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to go with the home team. Okay. I'm going to go with the home team.
We move along. Atlanta at Dallas.
I'm going with Atlanta.
I'm going with the Falcons too.
Even though it's in Dallas,
I think the Falcons have a resurgence. I think they're going to try and make a statement this season, not just in this game. Like I said, they lost to Seattle in week 1 at home. So I'm looking for them to bounce back. Detroit at Green Bay. I'm going with discount double check. I'm going with the Packers there. Jacksonville, Tennessee. I like Tennessee at home in that game.
I might go with the Jags, man. I saw something in them, man. I watched second half of the game. I like what I see over there.
Minnesota, Minnesota, Indianapolis. At Indianapolis, Dalvin Cook is re-signed. For some reason, Kirk Cousins has played okay for Minnesota. He's got some weapons there. I'm gonna go with the Vikings on the road.
Yeah, I might go with the Vikings.
Buffalo at Miami. I like the defense in Buffalo. I'm going with the Bills.
I might go with Buffalo too.
Niners at the Jets. I'm going with the Niners.
I like us over the Jets.
Yeah, I'm not sold on Darnold with the Jets. I mean, and they could focus on Le'Veon Bell, and then there's not much else there as far as the Giants. LA Rams at Philadelphia. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to take the Eagles at home. I think Lane Johnson will be back. I think Carson will have a little something to prove, something to show, considering the way yesterday's game went. And again, as I've been telling Frank for the longest, I'm not sold, still not completely sold on Jared Goff. Sean McVay, I think yesterday tried to show that he wanted to play chess as far as his game plan and scheming. I just don't think that the Rams are built for that type of play. We have to do something on that left side of the offensive line. We've got to do something to try and contain the best we can Aaron Donald. And we've got to give Jalen Ramsey different looks depending on whether he's going to shadow one of our receivers or not. We'll see. But I still think the Eagles are usually, Doug Peterson is usually good preparing them after a loss, coming back after a loss. Then they're at home, although there's no fans. I think the comfortability of being home, knowing that you went to their building the last 2 years and beat them when they were better than they are now, in my opinion. So I think the Eagles will come back and win in a close one.
I don't want to sprinkle my bad luck on y'all, but every time I pick y'all do it. So I ain't going to sprinkle my bad luck on y'all. I'm just going to go with the Rams because I think that right now, this Rams team right now got a little something with them right now. And they got the attitude of their coach. They don't particularly care who they play.
Right.
You know what I mean? We was in a battle royal with them last season. Both games. We swept them, but I mean that lead went back and forth. So, like you said, I ain't sold with Jared Goff either. But the way it's gonna be on, it's gonna come down to your quarterback. And your quarterback is going to determine whether or not those D-backs and that defense can get after y'all the way they. If he got sacked 8 times, and you bringing in the Rams who blitz almost 60 to 70% of the time, you got a headache on your hands.
It's gonna be on him.
So
absolutely,
I'm just gonna roll with the. I don't want to sprinkle my bad luck on y'all. So
got you. Understood.
I'm going. Give me the Rams.
Denver at Pittsburgh. Going with the Steelers at home.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Steelers.
Tampa Bay at Carolina. Carolina at Tampa Bay, rather.
I'm
That's
gonna say
a toughie.
See, my brother's he on here talking trash too. My brother's a diehard Tampa Bay fan. So
which one?
My brother Tim, the one living in New York. So you know he been rolling with Doug since Doug Williams. So he a real Tampa Bay fan.
Okay.
But all right, I'm gonna take Tampa Bay because they're home. Like you said, there's no fans, but I think the comfortability may play a part.
Right.
And Carolina is still.
Yeah.
They still try. Both teams are still trying to figure it out.
And then on top of that, Carolina, okay, they did what they did Sunday. But you look at the other side, you look at Tampa Bay, and then you look at everything that we just talked about Tom Brady, where he's going to want to save face.
Yeah, most definitely.
He's going to do everything in his power to not lose that game.
Right.
I'm not going to say he's going to do everything in his power to win that game because it's a different atmosphere. So I think he's going to do everything in his power to not lose it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go with Tampa Bay at home. Washington at Arizona.
I'm going to take Arizona.
I'm going with Arizona in Arizona. Kansas City at the Chargers. I'm going with my boy Mahomie. Baltimore at Houston.
I'm going with the Ravens.
I like the Ravens on the road as well. New England at Seattle. Different quarterback situation. I like Seattle at home.
I like Seattle at home.
Next Monday night, New Orleans at Las Vegas. I like the Saints.
I'm gonna take the
in
Saints
that game
as
well. So here's the thing, people. We just gave you our picks for week 2. The schedule will go up tomorrow after we finish out week 1. So schedules will go up for the remainder of the season. Schedules will go up on Tuesdays. Okay? So we give you the Thursday game to pick, and then you can go all the way through to Monday. When you submit your scores or your picks, please try to go in order with the schedule. If you can screenshot it, check it off, and send it back to us.
Right.
Send it to myself at SportsRap_D or at Ball75, or you can put it in the Facebook group page, SportsRap Radio Show. So what we have on the line is, on a weekly basis, it's going to be a gift card up for grabs for the winner for every week.
Sure.
And the reason we want you to go in order of the schedule is it makes it easy for us to tally and compare notes and get everything situated and get it in. So there you have it, folks. Your week 2 schedules will go up every Tuesday. From now on, there will be a prize weekly, and we may even consider keeping a tally if everybody participates, as many people as we get, to see who gets the most and win something a little bit bigger at the end of the season. We'll talk about that a little bit more. So there you have it. And Frank, before you chime in, you're part of the show. You can't win. Before you ask, you can't win. Just like I can't win,
and I can't win. I can only talk trash.
We'll put in our submissions as well, just for the fun of it. But again, we need you to submit your picks in order of the schedules to myself at SportsRap_D or Baldy at Ball75, or in the group page SportsRap Radio Show on Facebook. We will tally up, and when we come back the following week, we will call the person's name who won, and we will figure out how we would get them their prize when they win. That being said, it's 12:57. Another show in the books. Good to have my partner back.
Feels good to be back in the building, brother.
So we'll be back doing this together for a while now. We are back in business. Hopefully we'll get Frank back up in here sooner or later when he can get in here. But you are or have been tuned in to Sports Rap, Heat 100 Radio, Heat100radio.com. Like I said, if you get into the link in the group page or description in the group page, the link in my bio, there's the link for the mobile app. You can catch us on YouTube, Sports Rap TV. Some video of today will go up tomorrow as well, or Wednesday at the latest. Football schedule week 2 will be up tomorrow. You can also get us on the podcast on iHeart or wherever you get your podcast. Just search the Sports Rap podcast and you will find us. You can check out some old stuff, some current stuff as we do it. Enjoy your Monday. It's not going to be as hot as it's been today. It's going to be a little cooler, maybe a little bit of rain today, but enjoy your Monday. Stay safe. Keep social distancing. Remember, you can DM us with any questions, any comments you want to add into the show. And we will see you all week on social media and next Monday here on Sports Rap. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week.
I want to know who my representing here tonight.